Guys, so hi. I don't know how many of you have seen some of the talks I've given today. I'm Josh Long, that's me. There's my email. Please take it down if you have questions or anything you want to know about Spring or whatever. Let me know. I'm very happy to help. Twitter handle, Kangaroo, what? Yeah, blog.springsource.org. Springsource.org, so just blog. And also joshlong.com, but blog.springsource.org is where I have a whole bunch of different blogs, including one, if you look under the blog tag, Green Beans. It's a blog series introducing Spring integration, introducing transactions and services in Spring MVC, and messaging with JMS and AMQP, and good stuff. So that's where I'm going to do that's where I do most of my blogging these days. So yeah, Kangaroo. Just wanted to get that obligatory picture out of the way, since Spring Roo is all about baby kangaroos from Australia, and everybody loves kangaroo pictures. This is not quite the high point of the presentation, but it's sure close. Look how cute that thing is. So SpringSource, blah blah blah. Core Spring. I mean, I don't know how many of you are Spring developers. Groovy, I love it. I'm a fan too. When we talk about Spring, and I've said this before, but it's very important to reiterate. Spring itself has provided three different, pillars that you can use when you're working with applications, right? At the core, you have the component model. You have this ability to describe your objects and then configure them, right? And you use dependency injection to be able to change how things behave by providing different implementations of services. It's a form of information hiding. We've all done that, of course. We also have aspect-oriented programming. So if you have something you want to provide for your objects across a whole bunch of different objects, aspect-oriented programming is a good way to do that. And wherever possible, wherever impossible to satisfy our requirement, using those two mechanisms, we use the portable enterprise abstractions or portable service abstractions. And these are things like the JDBC template. These are APIs. You have to use them to take advantage of them, but they make the code that you're going to use otherwise much simpler. And they also provide power and value on top of these other APIs. So, three different ways of solving the problem. Together, they're a very, very powerful package, and we call it Spring, which is, I'm a fan. If you're using Spring, and I'm sure if you've seen the slide before today, forgive me, but when you're using Spring at the core, you have this component model, you have all these great libraries, and then on top of that, my goodness, solutions for everything you could imagine wanting to do. Big data, mobile, messaging, integration, batch processing, like Hadoop, things like that. I mean, just everything, right? And it runs on all sorts of different environments too. So if you build on top of Spring, now you have this portability. All of these things are good. So what's the problem? Why do we need Spring Roo, right? What's the deal? What's missing from this beautiful picture? Well, it turns out that productivity is more than just APIs and code, right? Productivity and efficiency is oftentimes about integration tests. It's about providing useful UIs. It's about domain-driven development. It's about configuration, and it's about all these other things that slow down the process that aren't related to your amazing, clean Spring code. And that's what this framework seeks to fill. That's the gap that this framework seeks to fill. There are some other great technologies that also serve this void in different ways, right? So, for example, if you're using Grails, how many of you are using Grails? Wow. I like Grails. Grails is cool. But the thing is, with Grails, you have to use Groovy. And so a lot of people don't have the option to bring in this fancy schmancy new language just because they want to, I like Groovy, don't get me wrong, but some people don't have that ability. And plus, Groovy is also, it's got a runtime component, right? So when you use it, it's going to run slower than if you're using regular Java and these underlying APIs, because it's got so many more APIs above it, SpringSource Tool Suite, the Eclipse distribution from SpringSource, also has some pre-built templates that you can get at from the file menu. Good stuff, but again, it's a good way to bootstrap a process. It's not that good for long-term evolution if you want to iterate, right? Maven, same idea, same problem, same useful value in the beginning, but it's not good for iteration. So there's a lot of different pieces here. Again, none of them are bad in and of themselves, but we argue that there's a good place, a strong place for something like Spring Roo. Spring Roo is very much like Grails or Rails in that it is opinionated, right? It has certain ideas about how certain things should be done, and as long as you work inside those confines, you know, as long as you work within that framework, then you can benefit from the productivity that it'll provide for you. So at the top, you've got Spring Roo, which in turn builds on top of the Spring framework, you know, and then Spring framework builds on top of other platforms, so like Cloud Foundry or Java EE or Tomcat or whatever, right? You get to treat that stuff like assembler. You don't have to worry about it, right? So Spring Roo itself, rapid application development, very, very familiar if you're coming from a Grails or a Rails background. Based on other Spring projects, so the code that you generate, the code that you create by using Spring Roo is just a regular Spring project. It's as if, you know, somebody much smarter than I sat next to you and pair programmed with you for the entire duration of your project, right? You get an expert. It's also got support for all sorts of good stuff, including JPA and JSR 303 validations and JSF and GWT and all that stuff. And it's just darned friendly because it's got a command line tool, so it's imminently hackable. You know, lots of features that you want to use are there. Out of the box, and it is quite a box, by the way. Out of the box, you get support for all that stuff. Just take my word for it. We'll go through it, but so you know, there's a lot of different features in here that you can easily integrate with and easily play with just by using Spring Roo. Now this is the part where I'm not sure if I should show you that we should do the demo a little bit first and then come back to this or not. Basically, Spring Roo is, like I said, it's your ultimate pair programming. Imagine a Kangaroo sitting next to you pair programming. Now, of course, kangaroos can't type, but if they could, and they were really smart, then this is what that would be like. You know, it's having a good friend next to you while you're programming, and so it's going to sit there and monitor the code that you're typing, and then react to it. And I'll show you this in a second, but as it does things, it reacts, it responds to what you're doing, and it creates code for you in AspectJ intertype declarations. This is a very, you know, it's a concept that you get if you know about the AspectJ language. You don't have to know much about it for this, but it helps to understand what's going on in the background there. So having established that, let's actually just go ahead and start diving into this, right? So this is the SpringSource tool suite. I'm using this because it's already got everything I need, but you can use Roo from the shell. You can use it from the command line. You can use Spring Roo from IntelliJ. You can use Spring Roo from, I mean, there are lots of different ways to use Spring Roo, right? The idea is that you have to type so very little code, especially in the beginning, that you might as well use TextMate. You might as well use Notepad. You know, it's very, very easy to get started. So, first things first, go to New, or File New in this case, File New, Spring Roo project. And can you guys all see that? Yeah, in the back? Okay. So I'm going to choose a simple project name. Yeah, 1. So all this other stuff, you can ignore it. I do. I mean, maybe you don't want to, but I do. Actually, I have, I mean, if you wanted to configure a specific Roo version or whatever, you could, but, you know, whatever. I don't care. And this is, between you and me, I have no idea why this dialog is so stupid. It just dumps you right into the screen saying, please click the button. Well, why do I have to click it? Why can't you click it? I hit finish, you know. But whatever. Here we go. So hitting finish, and you can see it just started to dump the information that it was going to do, you know. This is a command line tool. So all it's doing is piping to a command line. There's nothing special there. So if you were on the command line, you would type in Roo, and then you'd get this console. And this console is where everything happens, right? I tend to forget what I'm going to do next, and I like to fly blind, so I'm going to type in hint. Let's move this up here. There we go. And it says I typed in hint. That's my way of asking my friend, what do I do next? Because I haven't the foggiest. So Roo says it needs a persistence option, right? This is domain-driven design. So we're working with data, and then that'll help. It'll automatically do things for us on our behalf in the rest of the application, in the UI and the testing and so on. So first things first. We've got a working application. Let's create a simple, let's do what it says. It says type in JPA Setup to set up JPA. How many of you use JPA? Okay, so this will be familiar. There is note, by the way, there is also support for MongoDB if you wanted to use that, you know. So I'm going to hit Control Space, If you're on the command line, you'd hit tab, just like you would in Linux or any other Unix shell, right? So I'm hitting control space while I'm typing, and it's going to automatically provide me with the options that I need to specify. So in this case, I need to specify database. I need to specify the provider, right? So I hit enter, hit control space again. It says, well, I'm going to, since I'm doing a lot of demos here, I'm going to go use an in-memory database. I'm going to use H2 and choose that. Control space again. Provider, well, I want to use Hibernate, right? Because Hibernate's pretty popular and it's pretty solid, right? So if I wanted to, I could type in hyphen and hit control space again and get the other options that are optional, right? Things that I don't have to specify whenever I use it, but that have, maybe I have a use case that needs them. I don't have any of these other ones though. I don't want to specify any of them. So I'm going to hit JPA Setup. You can see it did a little dance for us. It created this properties file that has our connection to our database. The kind of stuff you would do in a clean application anyway. It created our persistence.xml. Again, this is not stuff that has to do with APIs, right? This is just stuff that's related to all the junk you have to set up when you have a new project. Persistence.xml and the database properties and all that stuff, right? And it created a Maven project for us with a whole bunch of libraries to set up all this stuff. So Java validation, Hibernate entity manager, etc. So it's already a working project. You can see everything kind of unfolding here. My basic Spring XML file here. Well documented, so you can actually see what it's doing and all that stuff. Again, stuff you would do anyway. It would just take time. Now we can, we just type in hint again. I don't know what I'm doing. So it says you can create entities via your ID. So I'm going to say, and it says to do so, you type in ENT and then hit control space, right? Again, we're just going to fly a little blind here. Entity, JPA. I'm going to type in tilde. See that little squiggly thingy? That's called a tilde. And just like on Linux or on Unix, if you do cd tilde, it takes you to the home directory. In Roo, it's equivalent to the package that you specified in that dialog, right? So it means, I think I chose, something with gives rocks, There's 3 different packages. I specified 3 different packages. Yeah, so this means my package dot entities dot, and then I'm going to specify customer, right? And it's going to create all the code for us. So the first things first, let's see. We need to Maven update configuration, because now we actually have Java code in the game. So I'm going to hit Maven update, whatever. And you can see it created a source main Java folder for us. And there's code in there. And all you see here is customer.java, right? This class right here, right? As you do things in your Java code, these aspect files, this is a language. It's an AspectJ language. These files get changed for you. You're not supposed to play with them. That's why they're hidden. They're not supposed to be used. And when you compile your code, they disappear. At runtime, at compile time, they get merged into the Java class. So it's exactly as if you had written all the code yourself. They just get folded into the class. And because they are just basically one class, we only have customer.java. That's the only object you have in this whole directory. You can treat it like that, right? So I can actually go here, create a simple class. Let's see, main, whatever. Just an example, void foo. So I can do customer, yeah, and then obviously I'm not going to use it. You can see it's got a whole bunch of methods in it. Those methods are coming from those AspectJ files that live there next to me. We'll get into what the methods are, but the point is it's already done a lot for us. Hey, you. So having deleted that, well, goodbye. Yeah, sure. So let's go back to this actually. There it is. It's very impressive, I think. This is actually what's so important to understand. These annotations, they get compiled away. When this code is compiled, they disappear. They don't exist at runtime. They only exist for compile time. So this is why, in Spring Roo, which is a development time tool, it's going to see these annotations up here and turn on certain features for you. So you can see I've got a Roo toString method, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to generate this aspect, an aspect file that lives right next to my customer entity, and generate a toString definition for me, right? So I've already got a toString method. Now, you might have a much more impressive toString method. I am sure that among us there are people who have far more sophisticated two-string algorithms, and that is fine. Spring Roo is not trying to get in their way, right? So public string, two-string, and then I need to return something, you know, whatever. Hit save, and notice that the two-string aspect on the left here disappeared. So Spring Roo knows that, you know, if you want to override, if you want to exert more control, if you want to drive instead, that's fine. It gets out of the way. It's not trying to force you. It's just trying to help. It's a very helpful Kangaroo. Now, the other way to behave is, so for example, what if you don't, yeah. Yep. Now, you bring up a great point, which is this service, this feature is opt-in. You're asking for some help, and it's giving it to you. The way you ask for help is with these annotations. So if I comment that out, then the two-string goes away, even though I don't have my own version. So now you just get regular Java object two-string, right? These annotations, you know, that's your way of saying, Spring Roo, I want your help. I'm interested in some guidance here. I'm interested in you filling in the gaps for me. And it does a lot of amazing, it's not just one way, by the way. It actually reacts to what you're doing. So I have my entity class, right? So this is a JPA entity already. It's got a JPA ID column, a primary key. It's already got a version field. It's got getters and setters for my version of my ID, right? It's also got methods, active record methods. This is the default, but you can change it. It's got active record methods to look up the entity manager, to query for all the customers and get the counts, to find a customer by ID, find customer entries by a certain type, you know, lots of different stuff, right? Entity methods for saving objects and so on, all from your one entity, all just from that one little command. Now, take it even further, we can see, if I type in, you know, sorry? Yes. Well, there's 3 here, but there are other ones, yes. And we'll, yes. I don't know if you can default it, but you can add them. And there's other, but there's also other ways of creating those entities, and we'll see that in a second, where it'll give you different sets of annotations, you know, for different behaviors. Yeah.
Other than JPA, like other parts of the application, like the website or the database,
of course, and I'll lots to go through, and we'll have.
one more basic question: like, is free for commercial development, or is it like
It's free for all development. It's free for, yeah, it's open source. There's a project. You can contribute to it. And I'm going to tell you a little secret that's a little embarrassing, but it's the truth. The Jira hosting tracker thingy, you know, for this project, the people on the project are ridiculously devoted to it. I mean, to the point where they ignore people from SpringSource. So if you create a Jira and it has enough votes, that's what gets done. Period. There's no connection between what we want. Like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? I'm like, I don't care. File a Jira, Josh. You know, it's pretty embarrassing. But the point is, you guys can influence it big time. And if it's open source, so you can contribute and all that stuff, right? And, you know, if you want to write extensions, that's very easy to do. We'll talk a little bit about that, but you know. Okay, so check this out. So I can go to my customer. Let's say I want to actually add a field. I can hit Control Space. I can do field. I want, you know, a string or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Let's do that. Field name, first name. Yeah, granted, that's pretty ridiculous. I could have just typed in the Java code, right? But it's just nice to know that there are commands. And the reason there are commands is because this is all scriptable. You can take everything you're putting in this shell, and it's being saved for you in log.ru, right? So you can take all the stuff, run it by Roo, and it'll recreate the same project that you have right now. So you have a way of ensuring consistency among projects. Now, however, if you do want to go in there and create your own fields, no problem at all, as long as you know how to type. Apparently I don't. Last name. So now you can see it's updated it, and it knows it's already updated my Java Bean aspect.j file. And so you can see it's got getters and setters for last name and first name, right? All the stuff you would probably do anyway, right? But why bother? This is why when I say you could probably write this in TextMate, right? You don't really need the IDE. I like the IDE. It's a good IDE, but you know, very, very simple to get started. The AJ files themselves, you should not modify, no. But like I said, the defaults themselves, if you want to override them, that you can do. Changing the defaults from the get-go, or that's a little more difficult, I think. Again, it's We're not trying to override you. We're just trying to provide defaults that that are pretty opinionated, right? Yeah. Yes, sir.
So now can the same sort of can keep adding Spring MVC controllers?
Yes. Don't worry, we'll get to it. We're just, I'm on the one hand, Spring Roo makes things go by so quickly that I'm not sure we're going to last a whole 45 minutes. On the other hand, there's a lot of little specifics. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask, and we'll make sure we cover them all because there's so many different, features here. Okay. So we kind of understand the basics. I just wanted to show you that just so you guys can see what happens when you do some very, very simple things in the shell. Let me see if this makes any sense now. So you understand what I was talking about? The Spring Roo, it sits there it's like a friend. As you type, oh, do you have a question? No? It sits there as you type and it responds to what you're doing. It's active code generation. That's what it is, right? So it's not just like Maven where it just dumps out code and then leaves you alone. It actually works with you over time. You can iterate, right? And as I mentioned, all this stuff gets compiled away. When you take your WAR file and you deploy it, all you have is a regular Spring application and JPA and Spring MVC. There's no Roo. You don't need the library. You don't need the Spring Roo library in production. You don't need it in your server. It's just for development. So there's no dependency there, right? And it's also because it's not an extra library and there's no extra runtime, because Spring provides a lot of features. You don't need an extra, helper on top of Spring, right? So all you have is just Spring. Whoa, sorry, yeah.
So if you want to qualify some of the beans as Spring beans, right? So
Yep.
Add service or add component emulation.
Sure.
So will it, let's say if I configure a Spring bean, will it add a component scan configuration to your context file automatically, or we need to go and add it?
You need to go and add it, but that's okay. You're allowed to. It's your XML. It's your Spring config file.
Okay, but sometimes it could happen that I annotated it, but I miss up adding it in the Spring context, so which means that I cannot photowire or inject it, right? So in such cases, will Spring Roo help me, maintain saying, okay, maybe add it or detach it?
You mean if you create a Spring Bean, you wanted to add it to the XML? Or you want to add component scanning?
Component scanning.
It doesn't automatically turn on component scanning for packages that you type. If you create another package and it's not matched by the component scanning, then you'll just have to, just change the pattern for it.
It doesn't go through and scan for the files which has those.
No, it does go through. Okay, so different question. It does go through and look for the Roo annotations. Okay, so if it sees a Roo annotation, that's different. And if you start, and that's also a good point, if you stop Spring Roo and you stop SpringSource Tool Suite, and then restart it like 2 months later or whatever, it knows exactly where you are. It knows how far along in your process you are. And it knows what state you have in the application. It knows that you've created a few entities, but you haven't built an MVC controller, for example. So, and it does a scan of all those annotations, and it'll help you wherever you see those annotations. So even though we created the bean here using Spring Roo, we could have created the bean ourselves and added the annotations. And if you have an existing project with entities, JPA entities, and you want to take advantage of Spring Roo, just put those annotations on there, and it'll help you out. Yeah. No, the Roo annotations define a bean that is going to be managed by Spring Roo. They have nothing to do with what you define in Spring itself. See what I'm saying? So the bean we were just looking at, that's a JPA entity, right? It's already configured by the entity manager that Spring Roo has provided for you in Spring. The entity manager will persist that entity for you because the annotation is there. But it's not. It doesn't register the bean as a bean in Spring Roo, Spring itself. See what I'm saying? Well, okay. So we're. Well, it's JPA. This is a JPA base. There's also MongoDB, and there's also a plugin that does Neo4j, which is a graph database. Again, we're assuming that, the 80% case is okay. JPA. We want. Yeah, but there's no JDBC. Is my point. Sorry, and I'm with you. I'm a JDBC guy as well, but 80% cases here, right? Okay, so you kind of understand that. We just did the basic Spring Roo thing. So now, okay, I just did a very simple domain entity, right? Using the command line tools there, and we actually saw a Spring Roo application. That's not actually that interesting, if I'm honest. Let's create a new project here. I'm going to go Spring Roo project. Oops, let me cancel out of here. Close all these guys. Hit over here, Spring Roo project. And we're going to say GIDS rocks 2, right? So a simple Roo app. So this is the base package. That's tilde, right? So don't let me forget. A simple Roo app, whatever. Hit next. Stupid dialog. Hit finish. There you go. Wait for it to spin up. Now, okay, so same thing. We're going to do that same thing again. JPA Setup. I'm going to choose my database. I'm going to choose H2 in memory. I'm going to choose a provider. I'm going to choose Hibernate. And voila, I hit go. Now, what I really want to do is actually take my existing schema. So let's see. I've got a database schema that I created for you guys. I probably need to start the database. Go here. Question? While I'm working? Okay. h2.sh. Start that bad boy up. I'm going to log into my little Roo CRM for you guys. See, I created this schema. I already have a table graph that I want to be able to work with. I don't want to have to recreate my entities inside of Spring Roo. So it would be nice if I could get Spring Roo to help a brother out, you know, come on. So go over here. And what I want to do is actually get that information. I want to database reverse engineer, right? So, okay, here we go. Close this out. Close you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Okay, and goodbye to you. Ah! Okay, good. Okay, so first things first, I want to do database reverse engineering. For me to do that, I need to set a property, right? Remember I told you guys that it had that properties file in there for me? It's going to store all my database information in that property file. So it's, what is it, database.properties. So you can see this is what it's going to connect to, right? I can change the property in here directly, or I can do this, again, for scriptability, database properties. Whoop, hello, property. I can do list like that, and that gives me the things that are in the property file. I can do properties set, and I can choose the key. And I'm going to choose database.url value, and the value I want it to be is this one, right? The one I just got from my connection dialog in the database. So now I have changed it. Again, two different ways of doing something. You didn't save a lot of time there. I get it. But scriptability is important. Now, I want to do database reverse engineering. So reverse engineer schema public, because that's where my data lives. And nothing else. So I'm going to hit enter. Let's see what it gives me while I drink some water. It's going to scan my database and connect. Sorry? Yeah, you can run. So the easiest way is to go get the Roo command line, right? It's a shell script called Roo. And you pass in, you just say Roo space and then foo.roo. And you run all the commands in here. But you can also just paste a whole bunch of commands in this console, you know, if you open up the Roo shell. So, okay. So it tried to help me. It tried to do what I wanted, but it said, nope, I can't do that. We haven't found the JDBC driver. So you need a JDBC driver. I need the H2 JDBC driver. It says, but, you know, even though you need that, we've already got one registered as an add-on. So the simplest type of add-on are these jars, like extra jars that you want for drivers, right? So it says, hey, we can go ahead and install that jar for you. So go ahead and do it. So I'm going to say add-on. Install, and I'm going to say ID, right? And then I'm going to say search result, and it's going to be search result 1, right? So 0, 1, right here. Hit go. And all that's going to do is it's going to wrap the jar for me and create it, you know, plug it into the application for me so that I can use it in my database reverse engineering. You can see on the bottom there, it's already going through, you know, scanning back and forth. Give it a second. So again, we have, we'll go back to it in a second, but basically you can see we can declare our domain model by ourselves, doing, you know, starting with Spring Roo, or we can bootstrap off an existing schema. Spring Roo tries to be as helpful as possible. There's lots of ways to get your domain model into Spring Roo. Yes, well, this is first it's going to install the driver, and then we'll generate the JPA entities. Yes, exactly. And you can, you know, from there you can override the behavior that it's already got, right?
We can reverse or
Sorry?
We can do
Yeah, yeah, of course, JPA already has facilities to create the schema for you and all that stuff. So that'll be done automatically if you say DDL DDL.create whatever equals true, just like you would normally. Now, this is one of those things where you kind of need the Wi-Fi. Come on, Wi-Fi. Yeah. Well, okay, so good question. You can delete the AJ files. You can delete them. I wouldn't. You can commit those into Git, but my point is, as long as those annotations are there, it'll regenerate everything based on those annotations. So all the AJ files are just ephemeral, right? They live only to serve you, and if you delete them, they'll come back as long as you have the annotations. So, in the meantime, where is my jar? Come, God. Yes, so JSF and GWT and Flex and what's the other one? GWT, JSF, Flex, Spring MVC. Well, so we'll see in a second. It actually creates RESTful endpoints for you as well using Spring MVC. So if you want to connect to it from JavaScript, you can, right? Okay. Well, I'm going to see what is going on here. Grids rocks 2. I've been having trouble all day with Wi-Fi. Root shell. PIDS, come on. It normally takes just a second, so this is a pretty absurd. Cancel requested. Yeah, no kidding. Well, we can always try something else. Let's see here. New. Yep. Well, I'd love to. Yeah, sure. We'll come back to that when or if it finishes. Let's go back to that original customer data and customer entity. I've got my 2 fields there, right? So the next question is okay. Sorry. Yeah, but it's doing something weird. I suppose I could. I never have to do that. I'm not even sure what to do there. It's so confusing. I mean, this is usually very, very easy. Okay, hold on. Let's go back to this one. So we've successfully typed in hint. Let's see. Honestly. So it seems like it's just stopping based on that. And frankly, I don't have all day. So we're going to restart. Yeah, you don't need that. Well, it's TCServer basically is the so TCServer is a vFabric product. Basically, it's for operations people. It's a hardened, enterprise-ready Tomcat. But for development, just use Tomcat. There's also something called TCServer Developer Edition, which you can get for free, and it provides Spring Insight and the ability to actually trace the speed of your application and so on.
Does this bundle with the Tomcat server?
Yes. No, well, there's also Tomcat. I have Tomcat locally, but my point is the TCServer Developer Edition is already bundled with your STS. When you download it, you already have it for free. You also have Spring Roo already set up for free. You have, just a whole bunch of different features set up for free. It's just operations. It's good for monitoring, good for admin, good for things like that. It has good support. There's good strategies for clustering it and all that stuff. But again, that's not something you would worry about. Sorry?
The one that is bundled with Spring?
Yeah, the one that's bundled is free with SpringSource Tool Suite. The one that you actually get for production is a different beast, right? So the one we have for development has good tools for tracing JavaScript, good tools for tracing the actual performance of your application, and so on. Okay. Open shell for projects. We're going to try this one. Hit OK. So we'll see what we have here. Hint. Okay. So we have that simple entity. The next logical place, right? Oh, we actually saw the data model. This is the DBRE thing that I was trying to import, which I just need that one little jar for. It's not like I couldn't write the code for that right now on the shell and get the object for you, but I wonder. Sorry, guys, yeah. So, well, actually, yeah, okay, well, fine. So we go here, we type in hint, hit enter, and it says, okay, we can create web controllers right now with hint web MVC, right? So the first thing we'll do, the obvious one, right? First thing we're going to do is going to type in MVC, or sorry, hint web MVC. It's going to say, do you want to create a RESTful Spring MVC controllers? No problem. It's easy. Just do Web MVC Setup, right? So this is the default, this is the common case, right? You saw that, by the way, there's an option here to set up just JSON feeds as opposed to a full-on application. So I'm going to hit Web MVC Setup, and it's going to create a web application with tags, right? Now remember I told you Spring Roo has no runtime component. We don't provide an extra jar that you need in your runtime. We just provide clean tags that you can use to actually partition and lay out your application. Tags that you would use anyway, right? These are the tags you would build yourself in a really big structured application. So the code for all this lives in your actual Spring Roo application. Again, we generate it. You're more than free to update it as you would like, right? However, I haven't done anything yet. All I've done is I've installed Spring MVC, I've set up the XML, I've set up my web.xml. I converted my project from a regular jar into a web.x, a webinf and all that stuff. Now from here, I want to do controller all, and I'm going to specify the package. I want .controllers, and I hit go, right? And so what that's going to do is going to see my entities, and it's go, okay, I'm going to set up CRUD forms for my entities, right? Basic create, read, update, and delete kind of entities. So I'm going to go here, new server, set up Apache Tomcat, because it's my friend, and we've been friends for a long time. Tomcat, we'll go here. Oops, too fast. Apache Tomcat, there we are. Hit next. Hit add all, sure, finish. And then we'll start this bad boy up. Now again, it's just a Spring MVC application, right? So I go here, HTTP localhost 8080, what is it, JIDS, ROX1. Oops. So this is the simple application that it has generated for me, right? Not, again, you can change everything. It is just a regular Spring MVC application, but it's got defaults. It's got the ability to list all the customers that you have in your database, right? So here I've got this. Let's see what it's actually, I can create new customers. It's already got fields for first name and last name, right? So hit save, voila. List all my customers. I have this nice grid, simple stuff. Not like you, again, you're not going to get promoted just because you have this, but it's a good start. And it's got all the things you would expect. Like you have the ability to look at the details. You have the ability to actually, create a new one. You have the ability to edit it. Click on that, right? So I can say, Joshua Long, as my mother would call me, etc. Right? All built on that. If I go back to my application, my shell, and I say, well, okay. I mean, let's actually take a quick look at the actual code that's generated, so you can see what I'm talking about. It's generated tags for us. So it's generated tags for the forms, right? It's generated tags for the menu on the left, and it's generated utility tags that help you load certain things. It's also generated IATN, internationalization files. So the whole thing is internationalized already for you. So you can see that down here. If I go down to language, I can choose the language. I can actually add others. It's also themed, right? So you can change the theme if you want, right? It already knows how to do all that stuff. Yes, of course. Oh, of course. And you can change the form, right? So check out the forms. If you look at the forms themselves, the actual views, it created a folder for your customer-related views. Same kind of thing you would always do. You can say update. And the way this works is that Spring Roo is going to look at your JSP file, and as long as you leave that attribute alone, it doesn't care what you do around it, right? You just need to leave the same. It needs to have z equals. It has to be there in the HTML for each element. But it doesn't care what you do around it. So I go here, and I do, well, okay. I do span style equals, or div style equals background color red, whatever. Hit go, hit save, and then this gets, did it redeploy? Go again. So now we go back to the application. It says list all customers, create a new customer. Which one did I click on? Create a customer. This is an in-memory database. Remember, this was all local, so it's, there you go. See what I'm saying? You can change the scheme as much as you want. Now if I go back to my entity, again, this is the beauty of having somebody there that's trying to help you out. I go back over here and I say, okay, what about my birthday? All right, so I hit save. It's going to update everything for me. And then I can go back to my shell. Whoops. Go back to my shell and do controller all, dot package dot controllers. Hit enter, or I can do controller class. Sorry? No errors. It's just update. Yep, there you go. So now hit restart. Requested resources not found, of course. What? There was an actual error? What did I do wrong? Oh, my goodness, look at that. I created the wrong thing. So the controller, wait, actually, what did I do? Well, first of all, why is this all? I did the wrong thing. I did the, bummer. Well, that sucks. Let's try this again, this time with Gusto, guys. Spring Roo, a simple app, a.simple app. Hit go, hit finish. Absolutely. Entity, whoops, int. JPA Setup, database, H2 in memory, hibernate. Hit enter. There's a command to undo it, but I never get it wrong, so I don't remember. No, there is actually a command, but I just don't remember because it's actually really smart. It undoes. It treats your file system like a transactional resource. So things that it has generated, if you undo, you can go back and iterate, and it'll just roll back for you. Let's do JSF. Yep, actually, no problem. So okay, Roo, entity, class, simple app dot domain dot customer. Go to my class. Go to field. I'm going to do the field this time because it's smarter. I'll do a date, field name, birthday, type equals, and I'm going to choose a java.util date, and it's definitely going to do the right thing there. Choose field again, string, field name, first name, hit enter, field, string, last name. Okay, so we have everything we had before. Now we're going to do web JSF. So you guys can see web.gwt, JSF, etc. MVC, hit JSF. Setup. It's going to install the JSF libraries. It's going to modify the application, the Maven POM and so on. And it's going to modify my webinf.xml. If I had done that, I could have chosen actually I could have chosen the theme. So I'm using Mohara, the Apache Mohara. But there's also ice faces, I think, or maybe it's the prime faces. So you can choose which one you want. You can also specify a theme. And then you can do JSF, web, JSF, all, right? So I'm going to choose all. I'm going to say, JSF, thank you. Hit enter. And what that actually does is it generates a package full of my the JSF bean. So it's got a regular backing bean, just like you'd expect. It's got converters in place. It's got locale resolution and all that stuff. It's got custom converters. Now I can actually just drag this, take this out of here, remove. Okay. Drag it onto, what did you guys do? Oh, that's Tomcat. Okay, drag that on here. Hit go. Sorry? Yeah, you can also do GWT. So, no, if I had done, I did web setup, and then there's like 3 different options. So you can specify GWT. So here's a JSF-based version of that. Again, not, you can see it's got fields for my birthday for the date calendar that I put in there. Choose a date. I can say Josh. I hit save. The actual entity gets saved in here in the field. Again, this is just JSF. It's the code you would probably write anyway. I hope. You can change it, of course. You don't need to, and it's round-tripable. Okay. Well, we didn't even get to the cool stuff, but we are out of time, and I will take questions if you have any. Thank you very much, guys. I have been so grateful to be here. Thank you.